Hello Movie Mavens, welcome back to another video on the B Movies channel. My name is Bailey and I put the B in movies. I hope you're having a good week. I'm not necessarily having a bad week, I'm just having kind of a crazy week between some family stuff. I actually tested positive for COVID earlier this week. Fortunately my symptoms are super mild. Just a little congestion, my throat's a little scratchy, and I'm just kind of tired and achy like when you have the flu. So very fortunate to have very mild symptoms, but definitely test regularly. Fortunately, by fate, some Sunday plans got canceled, so I've been home since Sunday. So I'm just kind of isolating until late next week because I'm already testing negative. So yeah, just stay safe out there. Be sure to test, even if you just think it's allergies. I did not think I had COVID. I just thought I had allergies because the pollen here is really bad. And I tested positive. So just PSA to be safe out there. Be healthy, look out for each other, get your boosters, get your flu shot. Yeah, so I want to start up top by giving some trigger warnings and some content warnings for this episode. I am going to put some timestamps in here as well. Don't take the timestamps lightly. Don't take the CWs and TWs lightly. I'm going to also link some resources in the show notes, and just to kind of give you some of the themes up top. There will be talk in this episode during the Bailey Babbles as well as the deep dive about SA, DV, grape, and I hate that I have to use abbreviations and silly words, but that's unfortunately what I have to do. I can't use the real words on the platform. But everything like that, just DV, SA, SV, and grape, those will be mentioned throughout those sections. And again, I will put timestamps up, but I just want to be really mindful up top that that subject matter will be talked about in the first half of the video. So you can almost think of today's video in two halves. The first half is going to be a bit more serious, and then once we get into the special features, we have some updates on some of our ongoing series like Vermis Malum. We have some new McKinney family we have some new McKinney family home videos, things like that. So kind of think of this video in two parts, and I will put some timestamps up on the screen to kind of help you if the first half of this video will be triggering. So just to dive in and to start, I have had a couple different people ask me if I plan on doing anything with It Ends With Us. And just to be very transparent and very candid, I grew up in a house with DV. I don't appreciate how certain people have allegedly treated the subject matter of this film. If you know, you know. And I don't plan on covering it. I don't plan on reading the book. I don't plan on watching the movie. I think it would be triggering for me from things I've heard and seen. It's almost portrayed in like a it's like romanticized, which I am not cool with. Again, this is all allegedly speculation, and I just don't want anything to do with that. So for those that have asked if I plan on covering it, I don't. I don't even plan on seeing the movie. I don't plan on covering the controversy at all. Anything that could even potentially glorify DV, as someone who grew up in a house with DV, I'm not on board with. And so that's kind of that on that. If you want to learn more about the whole controversy, Evangelina Scobb just put out a video about the whole controversy. There are tons of commentary and drama YouTubers that have put out videos about it. Feel free to watch that. But D'Angelo Wallace also just did a very good one. But yeah, I don't plan on covering anything about it, because anything that could even kind of glorify DV, and that's what we're going to get into in the deep dive, or anything in that vein, I'm just not on board with. So TLDR, I won't be covering It Ends With Us in any capacity. So next up, let's jump into our bite-sized Sunday. So since this video is dropping on Sunday, COVID has sucked my energy out, y'all. Like, it it's crazy. I've been drinking Gatorade and all kinds of stuff to like boost me back up. So that's why this video is late, and I apologize. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what today's Bite Size Sunday is, if you are new to the channel. Bite Size Sundays are little tiny reviews that we post over on our Instagram, which is just at bmovies channel, same as our YouTube. And it's just stuff I want to talk about, but I don't think necessarily constitutes a full piece. And so usually we do a teaser, but since this video is dropping after Bite Size Sunday is already live, I'm going to go ahead and reveal, which the teaser / this reveal is also just a perk of subscribing to the YouTube channel. Cough, cough. I'm going to go ahead and reveal it's about Smosh's new sketch comedy / late night variety show called Bit City. Definitely think you should check it out. The first episode is up, came out last week, and I think this is going to be something really big and really good for Smosh. That's my opinion. So for more of my thoughts about Bit City, go ahead and head on over to Instagram at bmovies channel. Give us a follow over there as well, because that's where we post things like if a video is going to be late, if a piece is going to be late, and then we also post almost daily for all of our pieces that go out and everything like that. So next up, let's go ahead and do our blog roundup. I know we usually start with it, but I wanted to break things up just a little bit because we had a heavy intro and we're about to get into some other heavy material. So this week over on the B-Movies blog, on Monday, we talked about Dee Dee, which I talked about in a previous video. I loved Dee Dee. I think it's a great movie. Definitely check it out if / when you can. It's a good one. It's a great coming of age movie. We talked about it in a previous video, so again, I'm not going to get into it, but you can read my full review over on the B-Movies blog, as well as in the description box below. We always link our pieces for the week. On Tuesday, we talked about Nanaland. If you've been obsessed with Nanaland like I have, I love Mona, I love Russer, I just think they're so cute and sweet and wholesome. I go into more detail about how Nanaland came to be and how it has made this big resurgence over the past year or so. So definitely check out that. On Wednesday, I talked about my thoughts on Strange Darling and Blink Twice, which we will get into in the deep dive. There are content warnings and trigger warnings up top in that as well. Excuse me, please take those seriously, because this is not... This is one to really take the trigger... Always take them seriously. If they're coming for me, always take them seriously. But on this one, really take them seriously, because we're going to have to... I have to talk about some things to make my point on the issues that I had with Strange Darling. So that is up. On Thursday, we did a spotlight on Eddie Murphy. If you love Schitt's Creek, if you loved her Black Mirror episode, I just binged Kevin Can F Himself. Love her. Learned some really cool things about her, like about her Jimmy Stewart tattoo, which I didn't know. So yeah, definitely check that out. And then on Friday, we talked about Evil. I slept on this show for a really long time, which is probably why it got canceled, is because I think we all kind of slept on it. But it's such a good show. I really enjoy it. It has some great practical effects. It has some great horror tropes. It has some great horror references. So I highly recommend checking it out. So just to recap, this week over on the B-Movies blog, you have the Dee Dee review, a glimpse into the world of Nanaland, my thoughts on Strange Darling, and Blink Twice, a spotlight on Eddie Murphy, and why you should watch Evil. So go ahead and check those out, and they will also be linked in the description box below. So now, let's get into today's deep dive. Again, first and foremost, CWs, TWs for grape, essay, SV, all like topics. Additionally, like I said up top, I have to abbreviate. I have to kind of call them silly things because of the platform. I apologize. I'm not trying to make light. That's just in order to talk about these things, I have to kind of watch what I say. And that's just unfortunately, I don't know why, but that's just unfortunately what I have to do with the platform to appease the YouTube gods. So, secondly, I am going to have to spoil both of these movies somewhat, Strange Darling more so than Blink Twice. If you don't want to hear those spoilers, I will also put a timestamp up on where to skip to for the spoilers. And like I said, I will put a timestamp up for when this section is over. There should be one up right around here. And then I will put up another one for spoilers. So, nextly, I just want to... Is that even a word? I'm just making stuff up at this point. I'm recovering from COVID. My brain has been in a fog. I am just a silly goose who writes about pop culture on the internet. We say that all the time. But I just couldn't shake the issues I had with Strange Darling, and I think I'm in the minority on it. That's totally fine. I just want to share my thoughts, because again, as a kid who grew up in a house with DV, who was verbally and emotionally abused, who watched my mom go through some horrible things, I just always want to be conscientious of how some of these things may rub other people the wrong way. That's it. At the end of the day, it's not to like stir up a controversy or anything like that. It's just I want to make sure to be mindful as someone who reviews pop culture that some things may be triggering, and even if I'm the only person that it rubbed the wrong way, then at least I know that I did my due diligence. That's just how I feel. So lastly, let me throw out my trademark disclaimer that y'all have heard a billion times. Just because I didn't like a movie doesn't make it a bad movie. Just because I like a movie doesn't make it a good movie. Movie making is hard and terrifying and laborious, and I give mad props to everyone on the cast and crew who made this movie, and I didn't hate Strange Darling. It's not that. It's just there's some content in it that just didn't set well with me. So let's go ahead and dive in to what happened. So last weekend, I unknowingly put myself into a double feature that shared some similar themes. And I don't know about y'all, but since trailers give away so much, I will turn off a trailer or I will not read any more about a movie if I can tell that there are going to be some twists and turns. I will try to go in as blind as possible. And so that's what I did last weekend with Blink Twice and Strange Darling. And while these movies are two completely different beasts, like at their core, but they do have some similar themes that are portrayed in different ways and through different lenses. So I think it's worth noting that Blink Twice was directed and co-written by Zoe Kravitz, who is a woman, and Strange Darling was directed and written by J.T. Muller, who is a man. And I know that some people are probably already groaning. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, I think that may kind of be responsible for what happened here. But again, I don't know either one of their backgrounds. And we'll get into that in a little bit later. But that's just to just say it up top. Just to be fair for both sides. That's just how it kind of played out. And to be fair as well, Zoe Kravitz's co-writer was a man. I'll be honest about that. So, to start out, I have been extremely fortunate in my life. I have never experienced any SV. I've never been raped. I've never been SA'd. Many of y'all know this story. One of the scariest things that ever happened to me one time is a man tried to grab me outside of a bar and, like, drag me, but, like, there were people outside of the bar, and so he let me go. And that was horrifying, but fortunately, I have never experienced anything besides that. And I'm not here to speak on behalf of anyone who has, of any survivors of those things. I can only speak for myself and why some scenes in Strange Darling bothered me personally. That's all I can speak to. I can also say I really enjoyed Blink Twice. However, for those who may have experienced some of the heinous things in that film may be inaccurate or triggering or offensive. I didn't find it to be, but again, that's not my place to say if it is or not, because I've not experienced those things. And again, I'm only speaking from my personal opinions. So, fair warning, here's where we're about to get into the spoilers. Skip to the timestamp on the screen now to avoid spoilers, and I'll give you a second. Okay. In my opinion, Blink Twice is a solid installment of good for her horror. I thought where there was humor, it was balanced, and it was where it should be. It didn't undercut the horrors that the women on this island experienced. I personally believe it did a good job portraying how sometimes women in power or women just in general can be just as dangerous as men and or be just as guilty of victim shaming women who have, been through these horrible things without villainizing all women or saying, like generalizing all women / femme presenting peeps. And lastly, I thought, actually, before I continue, I hope y'all do know when I say women, I also will always mean trans women and femme presenting peeps. If I don't specifically call it out, like, know that Elliot and I are both part of the LGBTQI plus community, and we will always mean trans men, trans women, femme presenting peeps, mask presenting peeps, MB babies, all of you. So just, like, please know before I move on. Lastly, I thought the themes of, like, wanting to forget trauma / forcing others to forget trauma, I thought they were powerful. I thought they illustrated how victims of SA and grape are told to let it go or to move on. And, again, I've never experienced either one of those things, but I unfortunately know a lot of people who have, and those are things they have been told. And, I also... I watch a lot of true crime and documentaries, and that seems to be a common theme of just, like, letting it go, forgetting about it, moving on. And so to me, I thought that was powerful. But again, I've never experienced it, so I don't know. The way that I interpreted it could be interpreted completely different by someone who has experienced those things. And so on the flip side, I think there were some places where Strange Darling could have done better. And before I get into the parts that bothered me, there were things I really actually enjoyed in Strange Darling. I thought there were genuinely funny moments, especially with the mountain people that were played by Barbara Hershey and Ed Bagley Jr. I love the way the story is told in a very non-linear way. It's very Tarantino. Had no issue with that. I love the concept overall. But there were just a couple of scenes / pieces of dialogue that keep it from getting my full approval. And that's just it. The first scene that bothered me was a piece of dialogue between the lady, who's played by Willa Fitzgerald, and the demon, who's played by Kyle Gallner. So they're having a conversation about consent, and the lady makes a comment about how even if she says no, it means yes. And now here's the thing, I totally respect if two consenting adults want to engage in rough specs and role play and have an open line of communication amongst themselves, have a safe word. That's fine. If it is consenting parties, that's fine. But I do think a line like that is very dangerous to throw out because consent can change. And to be fair to J.D. Moeller, the lady does tell the demon this exact thing at one point when he tries to put her handcuffs back, when he's putting handcuffs back on her. She does say that, like, even though she consented to it earlier. But the problem with this is I don't know how to feel about that line, because it's presented in a scene that first appears like the demon is trying to SA her and begins engaging in SV, only for us to find out this is roleplay that the lady has consented to. So it's a very gray area for me. Kind of this whole section is like a very gray area of the film for me, because it's initially presented as non-consensual. And so I will let y'all make the call on that one. It just bothered me. And just as a friendly reminder, yes can become no even if you've consented before. Also, not saying anything is not consent. The only consent is yes. And if there is any bit of apprehension in that yes, it's a no. And I just want to be very clear about that. That even if you have consented to something before, that yes can become a no. So, I just want to be very clear about that and where I stand on that. And I don't want to speak for Elliot, but I think that Elliot would agree with me that yes can change. Consent can change. So that part really bothered me. It's a gray area for me. But I think the line of throwing out, even if I say no, it's yes, I think that's a very dangerous line to throw out. And so the other really big part of Strange Darling that bothered me happens towards the end of the film. And so after the big reveal that the lady is actually the serial person and the demon was her attempted villain, which, just for context, we find out that her moniker is the Electric Lady, and he's called the demon because she sees demons instead of people sometimes, which is why she kills them. So that's why those are the names and what they're listed under in the credits. That's what they're referred to. So, like, just for context, that's why. If you're like, why is he called the demon? Because he's actually the victim, that's why. So the demon finally, like, tracks her down, and he handcuffs her. She's hiding in a freezer, and he, like, dips her arm over and handcuffs her. And so she finally unalives the demon, and she hears, before he had gone back downstairs to talk to her, he had called in reinforcements. And so she hears them start to arrive, and she pulls down her pants and underwear to emulate Grape. And begins, crying and screaming incoherently. And so there's a male cop and a female cop, and I could not find names for these cops. I could not find who played these cops, so I apologize. That's just what I'm calling them to distinguish them, because I can't find their character names, nor could I find the actors that played them. I looked everywhere, could not find it. So I apologize if it is out there and I missed it. So they arrive on the scene, and the lady screams and cries. So the male cop says, like, they need to figure out what's going on here before they unlock her handcuffs. But the female cop immediately begins comforting the lady and tells her partner that it's clear what happened, and this scene bothers me for a couple reasons. So, first and foremost, I don't like the cry wolf connotation of this scene. I believe the vision here was to further villainize the lady by showing that, like, she's willing to do anything and, like, stoop to new lows to avoid capture. But I think the same idea could have been conveyed without this connotation. I think that you could have just had her, like, sitting there wailing, be like, oh my gosh, he tied me up, blah, 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 like he's gone crazy. I don't think it specifically needed to be this. Secondly, I don't like how they kind of show a male cop being rational and a female cop being emotional. We should always believe victims. Let me rephrase that. We should believe victims 100%. 100%. And, like, I've been watching on Netflix, like, Worst Ex Ever, and there are also cases of this where, like, the police just fully messed it up, man. Like, just fully botched it. But I feel like the female officer reacts in almost a demeaning way, and it also rubs me the wrong way for, like, her to believe, like, the lady was great and to be proven wrong. It's just, I don't like how it's portrayed. It just doesn't sit right with me. Now, like, do I believe that JT Molnar had any malicious intent with this scene? I don't know him personally. I don't think there was anything malicious here. I think these scenes were truly just meant to drive home how brutal the lady was. I also don't know JT Molnar's background or history, so I don't want to speculate about his experiences. He might have done a lot of research around this. He might know victims of Grape or SA that weren't triggered by this scene or the writing. And to be honest, I would say the same thing for Zoe Kravitz, right? Like, I don't know her history. I don't know her background. I don't know how much research she did or didn't do, what she's experienced. I don't know. Again, this is just how these scenes made me feel. And I could absolutely be in the minority here. But as a reviewer, it's just my role to give all of you my honest assessments of movies. And my honest assessment is that there are scenes in Strange Darling that really bothered me. And I'd like to drive this home one more time. I've never experienced any of the horrific things depicted in Blink Twice or Strange Darling. I've been very fortunate in my life to not have had those experiences. And these movies may be triggering or offensive to those who have. So I highly suggest looking up CWs and TWs for yourself before watching either movie. Blink Twice also has a disclaimer at the beginning of the film, actually, and I wouldn't take it lightly. Additionally, I don't want to overlook the fact that men/masculine presenting peeps are also victims of SA, SV, and grape. I also don't want to overlook that fact, because I believe it's 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 men have also been victims. So, just moral of the story, that's how it made me feel. That's all I can speak to. Just take care of yourselves out there. Take care of each other whenever and wherever you can. And I'm going to link some resources in the description box below. Please feel free to reach out to those resources or investigate further. And that's just how I feel about it. So, I know that we started out heavy, but it's just something, when I do things like this, I know some people don't like it. But my thing is, with things like this, again, I feel like as someone, even though I am a silly goose who talks about pop culture on the internet, I feel like when things bother me like this, like, I have some sort of weird duty to just be honest. And so that's just how it made me feel. Didn't hate Strange Darling. I think that there's a lot of good stuff in it. It's just those parts really bothered me. So, let's go ahead and take a deep breath. Thank you for still being here, and let's go ahead and jump into today's special features. So first up on our special features, we have a teaser from the East Patch that seems to... I'm back. Sorry, my dogs were going crazy, and I apologize. So, let's get back to it. So, the East Patch, we have some sort of crazy teaser called Who's Coming For You? And so this appears to be either a new entry in the Angel Hair series or a spin-off of the Angel Hair series. And in this teaser, we see someone watching the footage from the first episode of the Angel Hair series with Francis and Gabby on their laptop, while we get some menacing overlay text about how we're not all special and, quote-unquote, not all of us could be an angel hair child. The laptop then slams shut when Gabby says she's happy to see us, and the text reads, "Expect me this September." So I'm pumped, y'all. You know that I loved the Angel Hair series / love everything the East Patch does, so I'm so excited to see what's next for this series or a spinoff of this series. Very excited. So next up, we have new Vermis Malum. It's a brand new video, baby, that's coming in at a whopping 20 minutes. So let's dig in. So the video starts with kind of like a Pac-Man / snake style game where a snake is trying to get an apple, very to me, very Garden of Eden imagery focused, but the snake is unsuccessful. So then the player switches to a worm character and tries to get a computer, which I believe is a reference to the laptop that our lead character Lawrence found. That was Arthur's laptop that was doing all the research on this game. So we hear the familiar, and we cut to another vlog. And in this vlog, we're walking through a grocery store where Lawrence is on the phone, and he's appearing to get NyQuil, which to me means he's not sleeping. It may mean he also has a cold, but to me the connotation was he's not sleeping. So he's talking to someone on the phone, and he says that he knows that he sounds crazy, and he's not sure what conclusions the other person is jumping to, etc. I think he's talking to his mom, but it may just be a friend, but the vibe that I got was kind of like his mom or a family member. And he also looks at the birthday cards for dads, which we'll remember that because we'll get into it in a second. And he also gets some popcorn, and then he heads home. We find out that the estranged significant other / separated significant other lives in Seattle, and he actually hasn't heard from her in a couple weeks. And there's a really good line that I want to call out here because it's excellent writing. There's what you feel, and then there's what's actually happening. And I love that line. That's such good writing. So shout out to whoever wrote that line with the crew of Vermis Malum. We then learn that, like, he wrote something that seems to be for her, but, like, he didn't send it to her. And so I love all this background that we're getting. And then he's also watching a movie. I couldn't figure out what movie this was, so if anyone does know, drop it in the comments, because I'm sure it's significant and metaphorical for something. So please drop that if you know what movie it was. So then Lawrence tells whoever's on the phone, like, something along the lines of everyone takes loss differently, everyone handles loss differently. And so we can, like, this obviously alludes to the fact that, like, some sort of major loss happened here. Like, it may be the loss of a child, it may be the loss of a family member, but it's kind of clear that, like, whatever drove the wedge between the two of them, it seems like there was some sort of loss, and that's why they're separated. So then we're back to the all-too-familiar Vermis Malum game screen, and we step into the creepy Let the Sunshine In elevator, which will always make me think of the Autopsy of Jane Doe. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's that same creepy iteration of Let the Sunshine In. It just so creeps me out on a couple different levels. So we get out, and Lawrence begins walking through a grocery store that I would say almost parallels Lawrence's grocery shopping at the beginning of the video in some ways. It's like we click on a bag of sour grapes, and we get some sort of audio clip of someone saying that they didn't text the other person. And then Lawrence clicks on another bag of food that's Chinese food, and we get a little fortune cookie that basically says good luck's coming our way. And then we enter, like, there's a freezer door that Lawrence walks through, and there's a Pac-Man cabinet that's almost similar to what we saw at the beginning of the video with the game that was being played. So then we hear another as a giant fly-like creature turns to us, and then the game appears to crash. And Lawrence stumbles across a new video in his unsorted folder that seems to be some sort of log from Arthur, and it begins with, like, it's not a game. We cut to some of Arthur's gameplay, and we watch as he enters the elevator and gets out on the 6th floor. And Arthur's commentary continues throughout as he, like, doesn't believe the game is real, and, like, he's had some revelations around the developers and the voice actors, which is, like, he can't find a lot of them. And I also think that the notebook pages that we've been seeing are somehow connected to Lawrence. Because there is, if you remember in the previous video, Lawrence makes mention of how, like, something crawled in his ear, and it feels like it's trying to crawl its way back out. And then in this video, when he's on the phone, he tells someone, he's like, yeah, it's like what happened with that ear thing. And there's mention in the note of, like, ear medication. And so I don't think this line is as frivolous as we think it is. I think that these may be notes from Lawrence. I think that he may be connected to this game. So either A, like, these are notes from Lawrence, like his journal or something, or this is like a physical manifestation of something that's going on with him, or he's suffering the same fate as someone else who was involved in the game. But I think between, like, the dad card and, like, some of the stuff that's in this note, I think that's Lawrence. I think that these notes are from Lawrence. But again, can't confirm that quite yet. Arthur also finds there's some weird stuff coded, where, like, one of the scenes in the game is coded to be parody, and Arthur's like, but of what? And we don't know, because it's like there's this weird scene that just doesn't, like, quite seem to fit with the rest of the game. So Lawrence then poses the question of, like, what do you think happened to this guy? And then we cut back to the level Lawrence was on earlier. We receive a call from Big Gulpy, Big Gulp, for those who didn't catch it, about how everyone looks weird and melted from where he is. And I would like to take a moment here to say that I am standing by my Dante's Inferno theory for this series. Thank you. I think this is established by, like, the fact that there's a Pac-Man cabinet in there, since Pac-Man goes around eating stuff throughout the game. The caller is Big Gulpy, which is Big Gulp. And, I think all of this is a metaphor for gluttony. Anyway, Big Gulp then asks, like, what we look like, and then asks, like, what he looks like to us, and then we move on. And then Lawrence clicks on brain food, which is one of the things on the freezer, and we get a YouTube video that compares people eating to computers absorbing data and how they imitate things and loss function, which, like, I am not about to explain loss. It talks about loss function. I'm like, I am in no way equipped to talk to y'all about loss function. And then we stumble across another gross and amorphous blob that's covered in flies, and then we continue walking through the aisles. And then Lawrence clicks on pig's head, but it's not like a gross, like, pig's head. It's, like, in a can. It's, like, very packaged, so, like, don't worry if you're worried about that. And he gets a drawing called The Orphan, and I'm not 100% sure what it's supposed to be. I think it's the Vermis Malum logo. That's what I interpreted, but I'm not 100% sure. We then get a really gross screen that's like, wear your new skin, and things turn, like, red and grody. And my interpretation is we turn into one of the fly-like creatures, like the one that we saw earlier in the game when the game crashed. And then we end the video with what sounds like Lawrence and or someone in the game throwing up. I'm standing by my Dante's Inferno theory. If I'm wrong, so be it. But I love this series. I think it's a good slow burn. I think we're just getting started, and I'm really excited to... I don't know why suddenly we've done so well without dog interruptions, and now my dogs are interrupting all the time again. So next up, we have new McKinney family home videos, and I'm so excited. This one is labeled COTHM, like the previous video, aka Church of the Holy Mother. Excuse me, also like the last video. This one was also archived by Diana. Hey girl, hey. And this tape opens on what appears to be the overhead view of a forest. And then we cut to some sort of room that has, like, a one-way sign over here and, like, a fall wreath on the window. And then we cut to footage of two women talking, one behind the camera and one in front of the camera on a couch. And they're talking about how, like, someone just had a baby and they'd, like, keep her for an extra day because of everything going on. I believe they may be referring to Jess, is what I think. But that right now is just speculation. Some other theories I have, I can prove. That's just speculation. And they're, like, continuing to talk about, like, this new mom who they're, like, talking about how she was wanting to, like, name her baby May. But then they wound up changing it to something that starts with AL, but then it gets cut off. So then we cut back to the woman that we saw previously. It's the same person behind the camera, but we haven't seen that person. And so it's the woman on the couch, and she's joined by her husband. And we find out that his name is Josh, and that, like, the night before or previously, he had woken his wife up talking about a break-in and locking the door, which, if you remember from the last video, there was a mention about a door or a gate being unlocked, and this has kind of been a common theme throughout the series. And so then we cut to footage of someone, like, driving down what appears to be, like, it's not a highway, but if you grew up, like, in a small town, or, like, somewhere where there's a lot of country, it's like one of those, like, country back road highways, or like a country road. And there's, like, a big storm overhead, and they stop at some sort of crossroads where we hold for several seconds. Then we cut to footage of what I think, it's like an eclipse, or like the sun is partially obstructed, and it sounds like someone digging. That's, at least in my opinion. We only see that, like, skyline, so I can't confirm that it's someone digging. Then we cut to a figure who's, like, in white with blood down the front of her dress and overlay text that says, "Hear my voice. If you do what you're told, you will be reunited," which echoes from the last video when we have that creepy attic shot where it's like, she said that if I did what she was told, she said if I did what I was told, blah, blah, blah. So then the camera zooms out on the figure as the text reads, "Love endures all things." And then it was at this point that my entire skeleton left my body at the jump scare of the sudden static / laughing / screaming, which sounds really similar to what we heard in the last video from the person in the attic. As there's just a TV with like some snow on it for several seconds. And then the last scene of the video looks like some sort of distorted figure on the screen. So it's clear that multiple families are being tormented at this point. And the process almost seems prescriptive to me, where like the patriarch of the family is the one afflicted and who carries out whatever. And so here's the big thing. We get a lot of good breadcrumbs in this video where we can start connecting some dots here. The first big one being the Walden family, which is the family that's in the title of this video. They are the couple from the wedding photo in the very first video in the McKinney family home video series. I rewatched the first video to make sure I was not crazy. And there are a couple other things here too that I would like to point out. So Dwayne shows us a painting that Diana gave he and Jess that says, "Love endures all things." Okay, as we know, in this video, this most recent video, that is one of the things on the overlay text. So you have that connection. Also, in this most recent video, there's a little painting on the wall that they cut to when they're talking about like the person who just had the baby. And that same picture, I'm 98% sure, is on the floor in the basement when Dwayne is showing us like what the people who lived there previously left behind. So what we can infer here is that the Walden family were the previous owner of the house that Dwayne has moved into. So, Yep. Things are connecting, things are happening. I can't rave about this series enough. I am so excited to keep going, and I hope you are too. So yeah, as soon as we get updates, I'll definitely cover them because I love this series. Can't rave about it enough. So the last thing I want to kind of touch on today is Sabrina Carpenter's Taste music video, because if you've been obsessing about Sabrina Carpenter's new album like I have, you know that she recently released the music video for Taste. And we have to talk about it because there are so many good references in this music video, from Unalive Bill to Ginger Snaps to Death Becomes Her. And I just love all of the cinematic elements throughout all of the music videos she's released so far. Like for Espresso and Please Please Please, I love the cinematic element to it. If you loved Olivia Rodrigo's video for Good For You that has like Audition and Jennifer's Body vibes, definitely check out this one. Also, listen to Sabrina Carpenter's album soon too, because I'm definitely planning an LCA sooner rather than later. So definitely don't miss out. So last up, let's talk about subtitles, just our little pieces of pop culture news from around the internet. So first up, y'all, there's a One Tree Hill reboot series on the way with Hilary Burton and Sophia Bush to guest star. Not to guest star, to co-star. So it's going to be centered around the two of them. Very excited as someone who grew up in that time frame. Love it. Secondly, there's allegedly a Krabby Patty style burger headed to Wendy's for some sort of special event. Don't have a lot of details, but apparently they're going to be making some sort of Krabby Patty. Next up, The Last Drive-In has been renewed for a 7th season. Shout out to Joe Bob, shout out to Darcy. So happy for y'all. I definitely caught some of the night marathon. Next up, Wizards of Waverly Place, the reboot. Wizards Beyond Waverly Place has received a premiere date of October 19th. And it's been announced that Danielle Fishel and Raven Simonier have been set to direct episodes. So that'll be fun. Crocs is dropping a trio of horror movie themed shoes on September 13th. I'm hoping to snag them. They're really cool. One is Nightmare on Elm Street themed, one is Friday the 13th themed, and one is It themed. So super stoked for those. The Boulet brothers have posted a cryptic teaser for season 6 of Dragula that I am interpreting to mean like a trailer and a release date are now going to be on the way. Joel McHale will be joining the cast of Yellow Jackets. Details about his character are TBD, but I think that that's rad. A fourth season of Ted Lasso is allegedly underway with Jeremy Swift, Hannah Waddingham, and Brett Goldstein all set to return, which is crazy. Because we definitely were basically all told this is the end, but it's not. Sonic is set to release a Witch's Brew slush on September 30th at select locations that consists of caramel bubble, the boba bubbles, a green apple slush base, and soft serve on top, which sounds very intriguing, and I may try to snag one of those. Freeze-dried Skittles are on the way, from Skittles themselves, so I'm interested to see if other candy brands follow their lead on that, since freeze-dried candy is becoming really popular. And finally, Kool-Aid's Halloween Kool-Aid Scary Berry will be making a return this spooky season. So, and also as just a preview, my fall products I'm excited for piece will be dropping next week. It will be returning after last year. Y'all really seem to love it. So it will be up next week. So I guess on that note, it is time to wrap it up. So be sure to follow us on Instagram at bmovies channel. Feel free to follow me at Lisa_Frankenstein_. Feel free to follow Elliot at reading.with.red. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Be sure to give us a like if you feel so inclined, and leave a comment if you're feeling frisky. And on that note, all that's left to do is fade to black.